Right, so we now know that on April the 5th, we will be getting the first card as part of the brand new partnership between Frank Warren's Queensbury stable and streaming service Dazn. And it's all kicking off with a huge heavyweight card headlined by Dillian Whyte versus Joe Joyce, with the co-main event being Lawrence Okoli up at heavyweight facing off against old rival Richard Riakporhe, and there are even more fights yet to be added to the card. You've also got David Adelai. There are rumours that Moses Atoma could possibly well be added to the card in another step up, and I'm absolutely buzzing for it. But the first fight on the agenda is what I want to talk about today, and that is Dillian Whyte against Joe Joyce. And I can make you guys a promise right now that this fight will be an entertaining one. And the reason I want to make you that promise is because I've actually seen quite a bit of negativity around this fight, which really surprises me. So the first thing I want to do is address that negativity by giving you guys my initial thoughts on this as a matchup. Now, Dillian Whyte has obviously suffered multiple losses. Joe Joyce has suffered multiple losses. Both men once upon a time looked set to take on some of the best at world level. Both men once upon a time were tipped to become world champions. And at one point, if you were to have said that they would be where they are in the rankings right now, some may not have believed you. If I asked you right now to name me 10 fighters, let's say, who could finish 2025 as a world champion, I don't think that any of you guys would be naming Dillian Whyte or Joe Joyce as one of those 10. But here's my question. What is wrong with that? I literally sat down this past weekend with Brian, we had a couple of beers, and we watched the Derek Chisora against Otto Wallin fight. And despite Wallin not being very competitive, I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Del Boy said, fuck the fundamentals, I'm going to cross my arms, I'm going to come in and change stance, switch from orthodox to southpaw, and risk getting hit square on as I do that, all in order to just put a dent in the man in front of me and throw the kitchen sink at him. And that was very entertaining. Was it high level? No, not in my opinion. Do I rate Derek Chisora any higher now than I rated him, let's say, for example, when I was sat myself inside the O2 Arena for his rematch with Dillian Whyte? No. But did I enjoy the fight? Yes. And so did the public, by the way, because albeit with the help of some big ticket sellers on the card, it pretty much sold out the Co-op Arena in Manchester. Not only that, I looked at TNT Boxing's YouTube channel earlier on, right, and the highlights that were posted of that fight just 2 days ago have nearly hit 1 million views. That same TNT Sports Boxing YouTube channel posted the highlights of the first bout, the undisputed fight, the first undisputed fight in over 20 years between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk over 8 months ago. And the current view count on that is just over 340,000 views. So let me tell you, right, casual boxing fans matter. As much as you might not want to hear it, they're the ones that move the needle. They're the ones that can make a fight a big fight, regardless of how highly skilled it is. So whether or not this fight is British level, European level, world level, or a fight that you could see in a pub car park, an entertaining fight is an entertaining fight nonetheless. Both men have always looked to bring maximum violence to a boxing ring. So you guys can let me know in the comment section below if you honestly don't agree that we're going to get that from this fight. But before we get into all that, people, welcome back to the Joey Knight Boxing channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, smash a like on the video right now. Let's get back into it. Now, let's be honest, Dillian Whyte did not look great in his last high profile fight, which was obviously the fight against Tyson Fury, a fight that I was at, and a fight that albeit me wanting Tyson Fury to win the fight, I was disappointed in Dillian Whyte's performance. I thought that he would be a bit more gung-ho, he would throw the kitchen sink at Tyson Fury a little bit more, and he didn't. He was eventually stopped by an uppercut. By the way, the third time he has been stopped in his career, and all 3 times he has been stopped by an uppercut. So that's definitely a shot that Joe Joyce should be working on during this camp. However, that's literally the only fight that I can remember, tell me if I'm wrong in the comment section, that Dillian Whyte hasn't turned up, and hasn't turned up with bad intentions, looking to put on maximum violence. Now, I saw him get so much stick after his fight against Tete, right? And I admit, Dillian Whyte did not look great in that fight. But at the same time, I don't think he looked anywhere near as bad as people are suggesting. Remember, Dillian Whyte has been dropped 5 times in his career. He's been stopped 3 times, but he's been dropped 5 times. Those stoppages, by the way, come into AJ, who was a high-level guy, Tyson Fury, a high-level guy, and Povetkin, who, okay, was past his prime. Dillian Whyte actually avenged that loss, but had operated at a high level, and which actually, due to the fact he was on the juice, apparently that stoppage never even happened now, did it? But either way, right, what I'm saying is, Whyte has been hit plenty of times, dropped plenty of times. He was dropped by Oscar Rivas, wasn't he? He was dropped by Joseph Parker. So it's hardly a secret that Dillian Whyte can be hit. He's never been a slick mover who isn't able to be hit. So despite the fact that he won every single round against Tete, maybe you were disappointed, right? Maybe you were disappointed that he got hit and he didn't get Tete out of there, and that's fair enough. I've got no problem if you were disappointed in that performance, but what I would say is Whyte had 3 rounds to go in which he may have got Tete out of there, because Tete obviously retired on his stool and then he had a little shadow box in the ring after it. He felt bang up for the shadow box, but not to continue with the fight. And in my opinion, the tide wasn't turning in that fight, by the way. Whyte was just as dominant as he was in the last round as he was in the first round. And the main thing that people are going to do is they're going to compare that fight to the 1-round blowout that Daniel Dubois was able to have over Tete. But at the same time, in comparison to that fight, yes, Whyte underperformed, but why are we comparing Daniel Dubois to Dillian Whyte? Daniel Dubois is a wrecking machine at the minute. He's just gone through Miller, Hrgovic, AJ, whereas Dillian Whyte is a fighter that is rebuilding. And comparisons in boxing are great. It's a good way of trying to gauge a fight, get a measuring stick on who you think might perform better because of mutual opponents. But at the same time, I spoke about the Chisora fight the other night. Chisora backed up Otto Wallin and beat up Otto Wallin after suffering multiple cuts around the eyes. Now, can we think of anyone else off the top of our head that's been in there with Otto Wallin being cut and didn't win in as dominant fashion as Derek Chisora? Didn't drop Otto Wallin twice. I'm trying to think. Tyson Fury. A younger Otto Wallin, a fresher Otto Wallin, a younger Tyson Fury, a fresher Tyson Fury. Wasn't able to manage to get Otto Wallin on the floor in that fight, but Derek Chisora was. But what happens when you put Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora in a ring together? We all know. We've seen it 3 times. Hopefully we don't see it a 4th time, because Tyson Fury dominates Derek Chisora. So as great as these comparisons can be, I would argue that they don't always mean that much. So now let's move on to Joe Joyce, who after suffering back-to-back defeats at the hands of Chinese danger man Zhilei Zhang, hasn't looked great himself. But again, that's at a glance, because he's only actually had one meaningful fight to have the opportunity to look great since then, and that was against Derek Chisora, a fight that he lost on points and obviously suffered a knockdown in the final round. The same Chisora who had a fight of the year contender with Dillian Whyte all those years ago. But let's not pretend that Joe Joyce didn't have any success in that fight. Let's not pretend that Joe Joyce looked gun-shy in that fight, or that suddenly Joe Joyce looked like he had a glass jaw and could not take a punch. Because that was a fight where two heavyweights went in there and from the first bell had a slugfest. Mostly called on by the way that Joe Joyce never took a backward step in the fight. And at the end of the fight, he lost it, and he lost it fair and square, in my opinion. He lost it by unanimous decision. But had it not been for the knockdown in the final round, he would have lost that one by a split decision, because two judges had Joe Joyce losing by 2 points. So had he have won that final round, two judges would have scored that one a draw. So let's just face the facts here, and the facts are that both men are going to come into the ring and they are going to lay it all down on the line from the first bell, and it might not have as much skill on display as you've seen in the Usyk against Fury fights, but it will be entertaining, and entertainment is exactly what I want to see. It's exactly what the Dazn subscribers want to see. So any skepticism around this fight, in my opinion, is just not that valid, and a huge performance from either man can put them straight back in to the heavyweight mix. They will have their eyes firmly set on Riyadh season, on the Ring Magazine events, on Turki Al Al Sheikh and the fights that he can deliver for them. And that heavyweight mix is one that at the moment has an upcoming world title fight that we're going to be covering, by the way, live on the Pain Game between Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois. Two men that Joe Joyce has stoppage victories over. One of those men that Dillian Whyte has a victory over. So if that doesn't tell you that unpredictable things can happen and arise in the heavyweight division, then I don't know what will. By the way, when I was at that fight at Wembley, the O2 Arena, I should say, between Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora, and Dillian Whyte knocked Chisora out cold with the left hook, I honestly didn't believe that all these years later, at 41, Derek Chisora could possibly be one fight off of another world title shot. And sorry to make this about Chisora again, but I, for one, am really looking forward to seeing his next fight. And he's hardly a boxer that is showing me elite level IQ when he gets in the ring. So that emphasises my point even more. But back to this fight. Dillian Whyte against Joe Joyce, who wins? It's really, really hard for me to call this one, you know. Obviously, this is just an early reaction. I will give an official prediction closer to the fight, but my early thoughts are this. Joe Joyce has always, for me, shown a better engine than Dillian Whyte. Whyte will often fight in bursts, and then he'll soak up a little bit of punishment in the meantime when he recuperates and then gets his second wind. He used to be very good at riding those storms, and maybe the ability to ride those storms has, you know, suffered a little bit as his career has gone on, and he's suffered those stoppage losses. Now, Joe Joyce fights pretty much at one pace, and albeit that pace is a lot slower than other heavyweights, if he can walk through the shots that are getting thrown back at him, that constant pressure and consistency with the pressure can very much put a dent in his opponents and can overwhelm his opponents. But Joe Joyce, in my opinion, has always been a fighter that's quite easy to hit. If you actually look, he's easy to land counter punches on, and especially off of the back foot, because Joe Joyce really doesn't have a back foot game. Whenever you've seen him be stopped, he's always done it really coming forward. Even against Chisora, he got dropped coming forward. Whereas Dillian Whyte is quite a good counter puncher. Look at some of his best knockdowns or even knockouts, and many of them have come from counter punches when he has had the pressure piled on him himself. And although I don't think that Dillian Whyte has anywhere near the same sort of power as a Zhilei Zhang, I do believe that Dillian Whyte has similar power to a Derek Chisora. By the way, that being said, I also believe that Joe Joyce has enough power to definitely drop Dillian Whyte should he land on Whyte's chin. Now, Joe Joyce likes to back up his opponents with the jab, and obviously being well schooled through the amateur system for so long, that is something that with both a height and reach advantage could come to fruition in this fight. But I've always rated Dillian Whyte's jab. I think it's a little bit underrated, if anything, and it's definitely faster. Dillian Whyte, at this point in his career, still has the faster hands than Joe Joyce. So if he can get that going, maybe he can stop Joyce asserting himself and taking the centre of the ring. One thing I do know, though, is my favourite shot or variation of shots from Dillian Whyte is not his jab. My favourite thing that Dillian Whyte does is something that in the heavyweight division you maybe don't see as much as you do in the lighter weight divisions, and that is the work to the body. There is a reason why they call Dillian Whyte the body snatcher. And the reason that I think this is relevant is, albeit it seems like many moons ago now, does anyone remember the fight between Joe Joyce and Bryant Jennings? Bryant Jennings landed some really good body shots on Joe Joyce in that fight, and it was the first time that I believe that we really saw some chinks in Joyce's armour. Now, since then, we haven't really seen anyone attack the body of Joe Joyce, but I do believe that Dillian Whyte will very much have an eye on doing that. To be honest, who knows? At this point, it could go either way, but as I say, all I know is that this fight will not disappoint. I can guarantee you that come the end of it, when we do a review of this fight, we're not talking about one that disappointed and one that we wouldn't have wanted to see again. So if you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section below. Please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch this fight, it will be live on Dazn. I've stuck my personal link that will get you a discount in the description to this video. I will see you all in the next one.